Welcome to Education Perspectives. I am your host, Liza Holland. This is a podcast that explores the role of education in our society from a variety of lenses. Education needs to evolve to meet the needs of today and the future. Solving such huge issues requires understanding. Join me as we begin to explore the many perspectives of education. Welcome back, everyone, to Education Perspectives. Today, we are so excited to have Will Richardson with us. Will is a lifelong educator who, after 22 years in the classroom, has worked with educators in over 25 countries to push their thinking about the purpose and practice of schooling in a time of deepening challenges and emerging opportunities for change. He is a parent and author of 6 books and the founder of Future Serious Schools. His recent manifesto, Confronting Education in a Time of Complexity, Chaos, and Collapse, is a provocation for a new why of schooling and the foundation for a 7-week workshop of the same title, which is now entering its 3rd cohort. And play. Welcome, Will Richardson. We're so glad to have you here on Education Perspectives.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Liza. I really appreciate it.
Well, I want to kick us off with what I think is a very appropriate question for you. From a 30,000-foot view, why do you think that we as a society invest in education?
Wow. Well, I think we probably do it for a variety of reasons. Obviously, we want to prepare our kids for the lives that are going to lead in the future for as much as we can figure out what that looks like at any given moment, right? I think that's getting harder and harder to do these days with the amount of change that's happening and with the speed of change. I think in this country, we're trying to prepare our kids to be good citizens. And I think if we're going to be honest about it, that's a little bit in flux right now, too. It's a little bit fraught, obviously, without getting into it too much. But education has become politicized, and it's tough to navigate that piece of it. Like, what does it mean to be a good citizen right now? What do we teach? What are we allowed to teach? What aren't we allowed to teach? So I think that has a big piece of it. And I think if we're going to be honest about it, education still plays a pretty big childcare role in this country and in places around the world. It allows the adults to work, to do the things that they need to do. Increasingly in this country, both parents have jobs. And so if there wasn't some place to have our kids go during the day, it would drastically change the way we think about living life and the daily day on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's a little of all those and probably others too, other reasons, but I think those are the 3 that come to mind pretty quickly.
Good answer.
Is that the right answer?
There's no right or wrong answer in that one, but it's always interesting to hear because the breadth and depth of what I've heard in answer to that question has just been fascinating. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So you've been involved in education for a long time. What drew you to education?
Well, I started teaching when my original career was a journalist right out of college, but I did that for only a couple of years and then decided to go back to school and get a master's in teaching. I had as most teachers usually tell the story, I had a couple of people in my life who were really important to me as teachers. And the journalism thing, while it was interesting, it just didn't fit for me. So I thought, let me try to become a teacher. And my best friend had become a teacher too, and he loved it. So that's pretty much what got me into the classroom. And I ended up spending about 22 years in a public high school as a English teacher and then an administrator. And then left that job to do full-time consulting, speaking, writing, working with schools around the world.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. You're speaking, writing, consulting. What are you encouraging schools to do these days?
Well, I think that I just started a brand. I don't even know what to call it. It's not really a company, but it's a site called futureserious.school. Future Serious Schools. So what I'm trying to do right now is to help schools contextualize what's happening in the world and then use that as an audit for what they're doing in classrooms and then try to figure out what kids need in the future that we're not giving them right now. And I think, to be honest with you, I think it's a lot. I don't think we're preparing kids very well for what's coming. I don't think we're being honest with them. I don't think we're being honest with ourselves, to be honest. I think we're in denial in a lot of ways about the way the world is spinning right now. I think we feel a bit powerless in education to really maybe approach those denials or to embrace those denials. But I'm also trying to help schools, and to be honest with you, I'm done trying to help schools because I've come to the conclusion that schools really can't change. So I'm really focused now on individuals who want to build their own personal capacity to understand a lot of these questions that are happening around education and what it means to be an educator right now. And I guess hoping that trickles down into classroom practice, but I've become extremely frustrated after 20 years of trying to do change projects in schools, how little of them stick and how most of them fall back to the status quo, and how the narrative around what education looks like, what school is supposed to be, the narrative of the school day, all of that is so deeply ingrained that it's very difficult for people in education or anywhere to conceive of something dramatically different that I think would be more relevant for the world today. So yeah, right now I'm just trying to find people who are ready to go and have those difficult conversations, who want a place where they can be supported in that, and to really then figure out what the implications are for whether it's classroom practice or whether it's just their own daily lives in terms of how we operate in the world today.
Let me ask you about your thoughts on the systems in general. You're talking about how incredibly hard it is for education to change. And I agree with you 100%. That's been my lived experience as well. And I have come to the conclusion personally that it has a lot to do with what we measure for. What are we held accountable for in a system? The system works as it was supposed to way back in the early 1900s, but we are not, we're still sticking with that same accountability model all around content. And that makes it extremely difficult to do any types of change. And I just love your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's a couple things, right? I think that we've situated schools as the place where kids get prepared to either go to college or go into the workplace. Either way, it's preparation for making money, for participating in the market-based economy. And if you want to define what it means to be successful in that, at the end of the day, whether we say it explicitly or implicitly, it's that you've made enough money to have a house, to do that that thing that everybody uses as the measuring stick for whether or not you've achieved some type of economic status or whatever else, right? So I think that there is a very, and I don't know how explicit it is, but it's there. It's always there. We're getting you ready to go and get a job.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right? And to be a part of the system. But I think the other piece of it is that the success metrics have to change, right? The success metrics that we've had in schools, those ones that I just mentioned, they're not really the measure of success anymore. And increasingly, I think as the world gets even more complicated and chaotic, they're going to be less and less the measures of success. I think success is going to be how nimble are you? How minimalist are you? Because I think we're on a consumption narrative that's unsustainable. And I think the planet is screaming at us right now that we can't continue operating the way we've been operating. It's becoming more and more obvious that we are crossing all sorts of ecological boundaries that are crossed because of this idea of capitalism and market-based economies and keep extracting from the planet and all of that. So I think that success narrative is in many ways failing us, ironically. And so that's a big, hairy, huge conversation though, right? Because how do you assess for minimalism or nimbleness or whatever those characteristics are? It's much, much vaguer, less concrete, all of that, right? And we don't really like that in schools. We like to be able to measure the measurable, right?
Sit on a multiple choice test.
Yeah. The immeasurable stuff, although it might be more important.
Mm-hmm.
It's just harder. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to stick to what we can put into numbers pretty much. But yeah, so I think that, again, we're at an inflection point with a lot of institutions right now. I think, again, in this country, you can see institutional narratives breaking and changing on a daily basis right now. The things that we oriented our lives on are like, all of a sudden, where did that go? Yep. And I think that, and obviously not to be political, it's just a fact, right? It doesn't matter side of the political spectrum you're on, your life, the way you operate in this country, at least, and not the places in the world right now, is just very, very different on a daily basis. So I think that's a big part of it. And I don't know how schools catch up to that. I don't know how schools respond to that. I don't think they can in many ways. So anyway, the assessment piece to me is, sure, it's a huge driver. I don't know how it fundamentally changes. We can do takeaway grades and do mastery types of assessments, performance-based assessments, that type of thing. At the end of the day, though, they're still going to assess pretty much the same things. Can you participate? Are you ready to enter the narrative and be successful in it? Rather than, are you a good human? Are you healthy? Do you understand what's happening in the world, right? Can you take care of yourself? Are you connected to your community? Do you have really great relationships? Do you have a relationship to the earth? I think those are a lot more important, right? Than can you apply the Pythagorean theorem, or can you identify a passive voice in a sentence? Yeah. And then we haven't even talked about AI, but certainly that's another challenge that is definitely changing the whole landscape. And we're not responding to that in any really meaningful way other than to try to figure out how to make kids AI literate, which no one even know what that means.
Or to ban it altogether.
Or to ban it because it's easier.
It's because it's easier. Yep.
Let's ban cell phones. Let's ban all the things that, and look, it's not to say there aren't arguments that those technologies have problems and are causing problems. Absolutely, right? But banning never solves the problem, right? It's like
it's a can.
It just
on the road.
And the problems are still there. They just don't manifest themselves in the same way. So anyway.
Here. Well, so that kind of takes us back around to future serious schools. What is your hope, and what does it look like? What does success look like for you with these cohorts that you're taking on now?
Well, I think what success looks like is that there's a space for people to come together, as I said before, where they can talk about these really hard things and contextualize them in education and collectively figure out what to do next. And that's not what to do next on a huge scale. It's what to do next for yourself. I think a lot of the people who have participated, I'm just finishing up. In fact, tomorrow is the end of the second cohort, and then we're starting a new cohort in September. But I think most of the people who have participated in the first two cohorts are walking away from it knowing that they have, like I said, a trusted, safe space and some other people in the world who share their feeling and concern about this moment and who are trying to reimagine what it means for the way we educate kids. It's a really hard conversation because I think a lot of people, even if they acknowledge the things that they're denying about schools and about the world, and they talk about them and whatever else, they still go back to their classrooms and they go, I have no idea what to do right in here. I have no idea how to create a different space for my kids. I have no idea how to bring these topics to them in ways that don't necessarily scare them or in ways that are relevant for them. And you know what I'm saying? It's fraught. And so I think, again, it's not that it's a low bar, because I think it's a really important place to be if you are in education and you're acknowledging the existential challenges, not just to that institution, but to ways of life that are coming to an end. It's a good thing to be able to acknowledge it, but it's still a frustration to not really know how to deal with that in your practice. So yeah, I think that the conversations have been amazing. I feel very deeply connected to a whole bunch of people who I had never known from around the world, which is great. And I think they feel connected to one another as well. And that's important right now. So to me, that's success.
Oh, that's marvelous. So one of the things that I enjoyed very much from your information and from the emails that you send out regularly and whatnot was you actually wrote a manifesto. Can you tell us a little about an essence of what made you write a manifesto and what that's about? I'm going to link it in our show notes so other people can read it.
Yeah, thanks. So I think it's really important right now for everyone, but especially for educators, to articulate very clearly what they believe and what they, first of all, believe about the world, what they believe about the purpose of education, what they believe about how children learn best, and what they believe about the future, right? There's certainly other things, but I think those four from an education context are really important. And so that's what I've tried to do in this manifesto. I have 7 belief statements that I make, basically, and they run the gamut from these are the denials that we have in education. For instance, school is not a place for learning, it's a place for schooling. And let's be honest about that, right? We create conditions in schools that have absolutely nothing to do with how people learn best. In fact, they are antithetical to how people learn best. And so let's just be honest that what we're doing here is schooling. It's not learning. And let's think of and discuss the implications of that, right? Let's be honest about the situation in the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just really felt the need to state my beliefs and to articulate them, try to find some coherence in that. It was just a really great exercise personally to go through that and to then put those out into the world and share them and encourage other people to do the same, and then to engage in some conversations around it. And there've been some really great conversations around the ideas, and some people will push back on some stuff. Other people will amplify it. So and I feel like there's a lot of incoherence in schools right now because we don't state what we believe. We don't transparently and clearly define what learning is in schools. We just don't do it. We don't really share our vision of the future. And I just think it breeds incoherence. And that's not great when the world is fairly incoherent right now. I think we need to try to find some anchors for the work that we do. And I know we have mission statements and vision statements and values and all the things, right? Portrait of a graduate and all the things. But at the end of the day, those things just end up being posters on the wall in most schools. A lot of the schools that I was working with, I'd go in and I say, well, what's the mission statement here? And they'd be like, I don't really know. Let me look it up. So I think going through an exercise or an activity where you bring the school community together and you ask those 4 questions and you try to come up with answers, collaborative answers to those questions, and then you share those. It says, this is who we are. This is really who we are. This is what we believe. And at the end of that, there is some answer to the why school statement or why school question that you asked me at the outset that I think is a really important answer to know for any school community. And just to say, this is what we believe school is for right now. And then audit whether or not you're actually doing that. So that was the point of the manifesto, obviously to provoke people. I think there was a line in there that I was deliberate where I said something like, basically, the reality right now is that most schools around the world are not preparing kids for the futures that they're going to live in, full stop. Just not doing it at all. I think a lot of the ways that we define literacy are obsolete. I think a lot of the ways that the knowledge that we're trying to teach kids is irrelevant for the moment. And I'm a pretty harsh critic of education right now, not of educators, although some, obviously.
That's an important distinction, though. Yes, because there are points of brilliance out there.
Absolutely. And I think that I think most teachers and people who go into education do so because they want very much to do what's right for children. And I think that they continue, I think most, that is what drives them. Some, that's not true, but some are there just for a paycheck and whatever else. But most, I think, really care for kids. But I also think they're hamstrung by the institutions and the systems that they're in. I think if you're an educator right now and you are not frustrated, then you're not paying attention to the increasing dissonance between what happens in classrooms and what's happening in the world. And you're not learning to build your capacities to understand what you as an educator, your new value, your different value in classrooms right now from what it used to be content delivery. That's not value anymore. There's hardly any value in your ability to deliver content any longer.
All that content's in your pocket, in your phone. Yep.
Yeah. But it's been that way for 25 years and things haven't changed very much, right? But now I think the change in value is becoming more and more obvious, where it's about, again, your value is to help kids navigate an increasingly complex world that is changing at a faster and faster rate, where there are fewer and fewer answers. And so what are the skills, literacies, and dispositions that kids need in order to do the best they can to thrive in that kind of environment? And that you don't find that in a textbook. You're not going to find that, like you said, on a multiple choice quiz. So that's the value. The value of the educator now is to help students really, again, engage with complexity, to sense what is emerging and sense making in terms of, as much as we can make sense of what's happening, right? But all that kind of stuff is more and more important every day than, again, all the stuff that ends up in a textbook.
Absolutely. I think we need to be building lifelong learners because the pace of change is so rapid right now. I saw a statistic recently that in the 70s, if you went through and got a bachelor's degree, those skill sets should last you around 30 years. The new statistic is 18 months. So school is not the be-all, end-all anymore, and we need to be driving these competencies that you're talking about, as far as how to think, how to critically think and assess the information that is brought to you and apply that somehow. And yeah, our system right now is not set up to do that very well.
But I also think, though, that it's about, again, the ability to maintain your mental, emotional, spiritual health.
Yeah.
Because we have kids who are really under duress right now. We have so many mental health issues right now that are happening. And I think in many ways, schools probably contribute to that by, again, making it all about grades, making it all about college, making it all about competition, making it all
gotta get an A. It's not okay.
All those things, right? And so, again, there's a different value proposition here for what we need to make sure kids are leaving us with. And again, it's a lot about, how do you take care of yourself? Certainly there are lots of other things. There are literacies right now that are, again, changing very quickly, and we need to, I don't disagree with you that kids need to be learners, but I do think that it's more about, and not even more, but it's as much about, are you okay? Can you take care of yourself? Can you make good decisions about where you put your attention? And can you understand and figure out what is that thing that you're putting your attention on? I'm not being really articulate myself right now, but I think you get the idea. It's like,
absolutely.
What is true? What is not true? I've been saying to people, no one is literate right now. Like, no one is literate right now. And B, especially in this country, the next 18 months or whatever it is till the midterm elections here are going to be insane when it comes to trying to figure out what's true, what's not true, what's real, what's not real. And I don't think any of us are prepared for it, to be honest with you. It's like, buckle up.
I tell you what, buckle up, Buttercup. So what about solutions? What about, obviously, this is painting a pretty drastic picture. Do you see any bright points of light as far as what people can do to better prepare themselves? What's coming out of your cohorts? Do you have any consensus as far as some good solutions?
Yeah. So the way that I couch it, and then I'm not alone. There are a lot of other people who are writing about this, obviously, and thinking about it. But I see the biggest crisis we have right now is that we're not in right relationship with one another as human beings, but in right relationship with all other living things on the planet, right? So I think all solutions have to, and it's not even fixing those problems as much as it is, first of all, identifying them, owning them, and then starting to look at your own life and asking, well, how can I create better relationships in my own community? How can I really feel my connection to all of the living things, the entanglement that I have in ways that I haven't in the past? We're very separate. We're the separability piece of it. And schools contribute to that too, by the way. Nature is something that's out there. It's not something that we see we're a part of. So anyway, I'm not sure there's solutions as much as recognition of those things, and then on a daily basis, just bringing those lenses to what you do on a daily basis, right? So it sounds, I don't know what it sounds like. I was going to say it sounds silly. So we started a garden in our backyard this year for the first time, and it's been amazing. I feel weirdly more connected to just the world, the earth, the planet. And I think it's a good thing because now I see the planet. I absolutely see the world differently because of that. I see much more life around me. I feel much more connected to that life around me. Understand how I impact it, how it impacts me. And not to say that that's going to solve all our problems. It's not. But it is going to, for me at least, help me, I think, navigate this time more effectively. It's going to help me thrive through no matter what happens next here in ways that I wouldn't have before that. You know what I'm saying, right? So
I do know. And I think that there's something also just to being present in an activity like gardening, to just experience the now as opposed to spending all your time worrying about what in the world's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just seeing its evolution, and every day going out and going, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. No, look at that. And just being observant about it. It's a pretty remarkable thing that we just have blinders on. And so anyway, so that's really, it's about personal growth. I think we're not going to fix these problems until we fix ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where the work is. How can I become a more connected, more relational human or life on this earth in ways that help me then understand what move I need to make next and to benefit that.
To your point earlier, that's especially in this age of AI, I think that's exactly what we need to be doing, is finding, getting in touch with that humanness about ourselves and how that's going to impact the world moving forward.
No doubt.
Okay. So my final question, ask everybody, what would you like decision makers to know? And you can define decision makers however you'd like to define them.
Yeah, that's another really interesting question because there's obviously a lot. I don't know if it's what I want them to know as much as what I want them to be. I think right now the problem is that in a lot of cases, the people who are making the decisions on a national level, local level, educational level are not in right relationship. They're also separate and disconnected from, again, the ways in which life on this planet will thrive. So I wish they were, so going back to your question about what would I want them to know, I'd want them to know that we're in a very important moment for life on the planet. And God, this is a really hard question, but the decisions we make in the next 10 years are going to pretty much seal the fate going forward of what happens on this planet. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily going to end up badly, but if we don't figure this out fairly quickly, if we don't see the world differently fairly quickly, I think it's going to be tough, to be honest with you. So yeah, I don't know what I want them to know, but it feels like that question is more, I want them to be more connected to what really matters for life on the planet. Yeah, I don't know.
Good.
Not a great answer.
No, that is great. That is great. So for our listeners who have been intrigued by this safe space to really take hard looks at education and whatnot, where can they go to sign up to become a part of your next cohort?
Well, they can go to futureserious.school. That's the website. I also have a Substack newsletter. It's futureserious.substack.com. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as well, pretty easy to find. So those are the three places where I'm showing up pretty regularly. And yeah, like I said, our next cohort starts in September. And if you're, again, looking for a place where you can engage with other educators, and we had students in the first cohort as well, which was amazing.
Nice.
We weren't able to get any for the summer. Summer's hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're looking for a place to engage with other educators from around the world and just talk about kind of your sense of what's happening right now and find some collaborative opportunities to just expand your view of the world and what we might all collectively do next, I'd love for you to join us.
Fantastic. And I will put the link to Future Series Schools and also the manifesto into our show notes for today. So,
thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Will, for taking the time to be with us here.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Education Perspectives. Feel free to share your thoughts on our Facebook page. Let us know which education perspectives you would like to hear or share. Please subscribe and share with your friends.